For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. This video is part 3 of my Biblical and Marriage and Divorce series. Now, this one is a video that's showing that adultery is not fornication, and adultery is not grounds for divorce. So I just want to clarify one thing right off the bat, and I'm going to bring two Bible verses and then I'll explain it. In Galatians 5:19 it says, "Now the works of the flesh are manifested, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, and lavishness." So we have four distinct things, and adultery and fornication were two distinct parts of it. Now I want to bring in one other verse, and this is Jude 17, which says, "Even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth as an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire." So this fornication is pretty serious because it talks about suffering the vengeance of eternal fire, as well as the strange flesh. Now, I do have a video on non-monogamous relations for people that want to know what strange flesh is, and I think this is a very appropriate video and probably the best way to talk about it that I've ever seen. And I'm not saying that because I did it. I'm just, I just prayed long and hard about it. Oh God, how can I do a video on this without being offensive? And I think I did it okay. Uh, in light that, hey, if you're committing any sin whatsoever, it's not a whole lot different than what the people did in Sodom and Gomorrah. Just understand that. So, and I also have another video which puts into context what a marriage is, because if you don't know what a marriage is, then you're going to struggle to understand marriage and divorce. So I did a video and it's called Legal versus Lawful: Why Adam and Eve's Marriage Defies Modern Understanding. And it actually shows that Adam and Eve were actually common law. And that's how they lived, was common law, and they weren't married like what we do today. Common law is not necessarily evil, but fornication is. Okay, now let's explain what fornication is. Now I'm going to go through quite a few verses. There's two verses that I want to use, but there's a bunch of verses in the middle, and we're going to go through them all. It's not a whole lot, but there's enough there. I'm going to probably stop and talk about it as I go. And we find this in Matthew 5:28. "But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. And if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. For it is more profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. And if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that the one member should perish, but not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. It hath been said, Whoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But I say unto you, that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery. And whosoever marrieth her that is divorced, committeth adultery." Okay, so I didn't interrupt in between. But we have something that talks about committing adultery in your mind, and then we have some strange verses kind of put into the middle, and it's like, hey, does that mean if I'm looking at a woman that I need to pluck out my eye? Right? No, that's not what it's saying. It's actually being figurative. And what it's talking about, that if you have somebody in your church that's like saying, hey, like check out these women, and he's like coveting his neighbor's wives, and he's coveting, say, even his neighbor's children, uh, or all these things, right? And we just seen that if somebody's thinking something in his mind, right? Now we can't, only God really knows the thoughts of the mind, but the thoughts of the mind, the mouth often speaks. So if you have somebody that's propagating all these things to you, you're supposed to cut them off. And that's why it says eye, and then it also says hand, because your hand doesn't make you think about a woman. It's not saying that, how can I say it? Your hand just doesn't go and touch her without your mind thinking about it, right? So you can't cut it off because your mind's still going to be there. So that's not what it's saying. It's figurative. It's talking about the parts of the body, the parts of the church, whether it's friends or family or whatever it is. You got to cut them off because they're going to lead you astray. Okay, now let's bring this back into context of why we're talking about it for fornication. But it says, whosoever even thinks about a woman in his mind, that's adultery. But what did Jesus say just shortly after that is the only cause for adultery? Or the only cause for divorce. He doesn't say adultery. He says fornication. He says, but I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causes her to commit adultery. It doesn't say she committed adultery, right? So this verse here is clearly telling you whatever your husband or wife is thinking, it does not matter. It's only a violation of the marriage bed, period, that there can be a divorce. Yes, there can be separations for a multitude of other reasons. God doesn't want that, and he's hoping you'll get back together, but the idea is that you both go to God and come back together. Now, this video, I'm not going to explain who can divorce and who can marry, or who remarriage, I guess, after divorce. I think this kind of outlines it pretty simple. Who can divorce? It's not somebody who's thinking about other women, but it's so if your husband's stuck in pornography and doing all those things, if he's not violating the marriage bed, it's not a cause for divorce. Because when you turn to the Old Testament, the only cause for a divorce you can see is a violation of the marriage bed. And I'll do that in a different video. So I pray that this understanding makes it clear and simple. It's not what you think that constitutes a divorce, it's only what you actually do.
And unto the married I command, yet not I, but the Lord, let not the wife depart from her husband. For what knowest thou, O wife, whether thou shalt save thy husband? Or how knowest thou, O man, whether thou shalt save thy wife?